Welcome to Player Driven. Here's what you're about to listen to. Today, we are partnering again with Community Clubhouse to provide a conversation between Karin Johnson, the co-founder and chief product officer at Magic Potion Games, along with Kieran Donovan, the founder of KID. We talk about why it's important to build kid-first, not just kid-appropriate games, and what the differences between that are. The rise of Imagine Island, the game from Magic Potion, and how it's a spiritual successor brought to you by the people who helped create Club Penguin. And we also talk about KID and how they help global compliance and how they provide a path to monetization and best practices for launching a safe and online community. The guests have such great chemistry together. It's a really insightful and fun episode, and we hope you enjoy it. And if you've been a long-time listener of the podcast, or maybe this is your first episode, please be sure to subscribe, like it, share with someone that you might think get out of it. It really goes a long way, and we appreciate it, and we hope you enjoy today's episode. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Player Driven Podcast. Greg here. Today, we have another joint episode with Community Clubhouse that I'm really excited about. We are meeting with Karin Johnson. She is the Chief Product Officer and co-founder at Magic Potion Games. And Kieran Donovan, he is the founder of KID. I am super excited because kids games are something that's super exciting to me, something that's really fun and passionate to talk about. Before we do go on, Kieran, thanks for joining me. Karin, how is your day going?
Great. Yeah, just, having my coffee, sunny day in Raleigh, North Carolina. Can't complain.
How do you take your coffee here? It's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Just a little bit of cream. That's it. That's all I need.
All right, there we go. And Kieran, it is bright and early for you. You are joining us from Games Beat Summit. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's been an amazing couple of days out here, and great to hang out with everyone, and excited to join the podcast.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have both of you on this podcast. I think the two products you two represent are very telling for what Community Clubhouse believes in and the things that they want to accomplish. They have kids games. They want to make sure players are safe in these communities. They want to keep building up these communities and encourage best practices. And you both have both games and tools that help provide that. So, Karin, maybe we can start with you from the studio perspective. What is Magic Potion Games building? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started Magic Potion Games a couple years ago. I joined just over a year ago. My co-founder and the CEO, Stephen McDonald, we worked together at Club Penguin. So we worked together at Disney. It was a really, just impactful place to work. It obviously impacted an entire generation of kids, but even the people that worked there, you just knew you were working on something like really meaningful and special and positive and wholesome for the world. We went on to do other things. He went to EA, I went to Fortnite. We had really exciting, amazing careers. And then when he kind of reached out to me and said, hey, all these games went away. Roblox came and like Moshi Monsters went away. Like all these kind of kids MMOs really just went away. And the world needs that. The world really needs like a safe, wholesome, magical, age-appropriate place to play. Let's do it. And even though I was working arguably my dream job at Epic, it was like kind of a no-brainer. I'm a new mom, so more than ever, I'm kind of like, yes, kids need a safe place to play that we would feel good putting our own kids in. Like that's the bar that we set at Magic Potion Games. So yeah, we pulled together this amazing team. Even the co-founder of Club Penguin jumped on when he heard what we were doing and who was involved. And so we talk about Imagine Island. That's our game, Imagine Island, being a spiritual successor to Club Penguin, just really taking that magical formula that Club Penguin was and reimagining it into a new world, a new IP, and like a modern spin for kids today, tech today, how kids are gaming. But really that wholesome online social space that teaches like good, positive community citizenship, and just games and experiences and storylines that are designed for kids.
So I love all that. I think my generation was the one right before Club Penguin, because I know my brother-in-law was huge into it and he loves it. And can you explain to me and maybe some of the listeners, where is the gap between Fortnite or Roblox and what Imagine Island is planning on building out?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Fortnite and Roblox are both amazing products in a bunch of different ways. But even the companies themselves will be the first to tell you that they weren't designed for kids. They weren't meant for kids. Fortnite and Roblox are both aging up. They're putting in more, mature content and kind of like, hey, we want young college kids in here. This wasn't really meant for kids. Where, Club Penguin and Imagine Island, like we are designing for 8 to 10-year-olds, and we want, 6-year-olds up to 13-year-olds in there playing. And this content is like designed for them. It's meant for them. It's appropriate for them and, their emotional and their mindset at this time. So those games are great. They're just designed for an older, more mature audience. So it's just not ideal for that kind of late elementary audience that we're really hoping to provide a better space for.
I think that's great. And my son just turned 7, and I won't lie, I let him play Fortnite every once in a while. But I think having a space like that where it's safe, he can communicate with friends, he can play on rides, do games, play things like that, where you don't have older kids, I don't know what the best way to put it is, right? Come in, or young adults come in and kind of stomp them and be mean to them. I think it's a fantastic thing. And again, my kid goes to school and he plays games at school. It's a Prodigy game. It's a learning game. And I know Imagine Island's not learning, that's perfect event, but being in that environment, you know that they're safe, right? You can kind of walk away and say, all right, I can not worried about any bad influences coming in here to help protect them. And I think more of those spaces are needed. And I think it's awesome. With that, Kieran, KID, I think you're building a platform. You've built a platform that helps this scale, helps us remain safe, and lets us kind of protect our family. Can you kind of break down what KID is?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm an attorney by trade, so I'm sort of not the typical founder DNA necessarily. But what I was doing in my day job was advising game publishers on how to go to market with whatever features they might have, with whatever monetization model they might deploy, and navigate all regulatory challenges that exist worldwide. And that actually is one of the biggest barriers to building for younger audiences, because if you just want to take, for example, the age of a child, we've been talking about kids. The age of a child differs across dozens and dozens and dozens of countries. The way that you need to build for younger audiences and then teenagers isn't just different creatively, but it's also different in terms of the regulatory challenges. The best examples I can give you are, hey, chat needs a parent to switch it on in a range of different countries for younger kids. And for teenagers in a suite of different countries and a number of states now, you need to go through certain checks and balances. You need to moderate it in certain ways. You can, in some cases, only let folks that are under the age of 18 talk to other kids under the age of 18 and not necessarily adults. And so there's this sort of infinite decision tree of complexity. And if you're a game publisher sitting there and facing that, I've just given chat as an example, but you could take loot boxes, you could take advertising, you could take whatever it might be. That's a really, really hard thing. And so it's so easy to say, maybe we should can we just have that pop up? I confirm I'm over 13, and then we'll worry about that later. And to Karen's point, you end up with these games that end up being retrofitted after the fact to try and navigate all these regulatory challenges. Okay, now we can think about the younger audience. And so part of what we built the entire platform of KID around was, well, let's reduce the barrier to entry. Let's democratize access to all game publishers so that anyone can build for youth out of the gate. And obviously with everything that Karin and Stephen are building, it's super exciting for us because that's exactly philosophically what aligns with why we created the company.
I think it's fascinating. And it wasn't until our first conversation when you started talking about that the compliance of kind of age regulation across the world is completely different. And it's mind boggling. And I have to imagine studios, at least if I started my own studio, which I didn't, I wouldn't even think about this until it's kind of like the, oh crap moment. We're already too far. And what do I do now? Right. Is that maybe your biggest struggle, is the understanding of this is a much bigger issue than just, are you over 18?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's why I talk about monetization, because if, for example, you have advertising, you are going to have to turn targeted advertising off in a suite of markets. And if that's the primary way through which you derive revenue for the title, that's an existential question for you. Is it even possible for us with our current monetization model to go sub 18, to go sub 13? Does that work? What happens to the user experience, for example, if you have cosmetic loot boxes? So randomized rewards are part of it. You can roll that die, and you can achieve. You can get skins. You can get all sorts of different things. Well, what happens if that's not allowed? And it's not allowed in places like Belgium or Korea, or it's regulated in certain ways. So do you choose not to go into those markets? Do you choose not to expand into that demographic? If you do, what do you replace it with? That is the challenge that we get excited about. We get excited about because we can solve it, and because it's something that we can help publishers navigate.
I think it's something also, and at least I'm talking from my state's perspective, where you kind of ignore all this stuff, and then you start seeing this all happen in the states, where certain states don't allow for social media under a certain age, right? And pornography being blocked unless you have identification. Like, all this stuff is, from our perspective, right, starting to hit home, and I think it's all becoming more of we need to start planning for this at an earlier stage than later. And my question to Karin is, when did you start thinking about, hey, we need a solution for this? And I'm pretty sure Trust and Safety was born from Club Penguin, but you may have already gone in knowing we need this. But how do you even start to research solutions like this?
Oh man, such a good question. So we feel like a lot of companies, they avoid the kid space because it's hard, right? But it's hard for a good reason. It needs to be hard. Like, all of these regulations are really, really important to keep our kids safe, right? So most people are like, oh, that's a pain in the butt. It's too expensive. We'll just say we're for teens and like forget about that. But yeah, we like wrote the book on a lot of this stuff at Club Penguin, right? So a lot of this stuff was really early. We had to build all this stuff from scratch. We had to learn. It was really hard at the time. Like, okay, Copa is here. Here's how this works. Let's build all these different like funnels and tools. And when new regulations came out, we'd have to stop engineers from what they're doing to go and build, those new kind of logic layers in and stuff like that. So when we said, hey, we want to go do this thing, we're like, we know what it takes. We know how to do it. It's totally possible. And we're not going to shy away from it. We're going to do it from square one. So the first week I started officially at Magic Potion Games. I was done with Epic. I started wireframing our create account flows. And when I was at Club Penguin, I ran the web team. So I ran a lot of for the first half of my career, I was like running all of the key funnels. So creating accounts, membership purchasing, a lot of the stuff that was really key in that stuff. So yeah, I just kind of started wireframing it. And the KID team introduced me to the ESRB privacy certified team. And we're like, great, we definitely want to work with you guys. We want to be, COPA compliant the day we launch. So, and I said, here's my wireframes, like, give me feedback. Am I compliant? And they were like, oh my gosh, we've never been sent wireframes before. We don't even know how to work with this. This is crazy, but what a breath of fresh air. They're like, we always have companies come to us after they've been live to it for a while. They got some heat, they got a slap on the wrist, and it's like, hey, what changes do I need to make now to fix my funnels and things like that? So we were like, okay, well, it's better. It's a lot easier and cheaper to do it right the first time than to build it, get a slap on the wrist, and rebuild it when you're trying to, manage a live product and stuff. So I was like, cool, we didn't even have engineers working on it yet. And I'm sitting there wireframing and they're giving me feedback. And until I know what we're going to build is checked all the boxes, we built it. It was done in a few days and we launched and we were compliant. So, it's a lot easier to do if you think of it from square one. It really is. And then with people like KID and Microsoft Community Sift and things like that, there's all these great companies who have made their products, owning that for you. And we're like, how amazing is that? Now we get to like plug in KID, trust that they're going to, keep us up to date. They're going to let us know of all the changes. They're going to work with us to make, the right decisions for our product and our players. And we get to keep working on like really magical, wholesome, fun experiences for the kids and trust that they're keeping us like, our parental verification flows all up to snuff. So it's a really great time to be able to like use awesome partners to elevate all those places so everyone can kind of like focus on their bread and butter.
You said a lot there. I'm taking notes.
Sorry.
No, I can't remember that much as I'm getting older. It's like things coming out. But the few things that I took note that I remember you loved is it's cheaper to do it right from the beginning. And so many people will question that and argue that, right? But when you pour the foundation of your house, you want to make sure that it's ready to scale, right? It's easier to do it now and come back to it and just put that addition on than having to re-pour that whole foundation. And I think when you find that right partner, in your case, KID, right, that knows these best practices, I think it's fantastic because they can take what you took and kind of put it on steroids and take it to the moon and really be that great partner that you need. Um, my question to Kieran is, when you hear Karin's story of how she got started, right? Other studios are also looking at, how do I get started? Maybe I want to start with a less expensive option and then scale to being to a better solution. But what would you do different from what Karin did? Because it sounds like she was really on her game. So maybe she's not the best example to start with.
Well, I think what was amazing, so this was something that was unexpected for me when we started the company. And coming at this as an attorney, where I'd been advising big studios like Tencent on go to market for PUBG Mobile. And so in that case, you're dealing with massive communities, retrofitting games, trying to manage all this sort of thing. And that was probably 90% of the sort of game advisory work I was doing, retrofitting existing games to manage all of this. What I hadn't expected when I started the company was that there was going to be this spiritual, philosophical change in the way that game developers want to build games. And I think for Karin, for me, as young parents and as folks who've grown up with the internet in the way that it sort of exists today, it's so different from our parents and the way that they saw the internet and whatever they necessarily knew of what we were doing on the internet. And I think that's a community shift in how the game developers today think about how they want to build for young audiences. And so putting aside all the regulation, I just think there's a change. I think there's a change in how in attitudes around how game developers today want to build, and thinking about this as part of a component of what you should be thinking about from day one, and having that strong foundation. And so I would say actually today, what Karin and Stephen have done with Magic Potion is becoming more of the norm, where developers are reaching out to us earlier and earlier in that development cycle. In some cases when it's just an idea, and building around, okay, if we want to go global, we want to have an inclusive environment for kids and teens globally, how do we do that? How do we make sure, when we're even thinking about, do we do in-app purchase? Do we do subscriptions? All of those sorts of things. And so I think that's why I've had so much fun working with Karin, because they're the conversations we have as different things are being thought about or tested or rolled out. Hey, we're thinking about this, we're thinking about that. Karin and I connect all the time on Slack to chat about those sorts of things, and that they were the conversations we were having when Karin was building out the account flows. I remember reviewing all of the Figmas and everything that was coming through, and then even now when we think about the future of the game and the future of the industry. So I think that's what gets me excited, is so much of this is moving upstream, which makes us more valuable. And as Karin said, it's much cheaper and more cost efficient to think about it at the beginning, rather than discovering later on that you need to change your monetization strategy because you now can't engage with a younger audience.
I would add on to that and say that in my day to day, and maybe it's just because I'm living in it more now, is that other verticals are also embracing community on an earlier stage, right? Whether it be in my town, a local group of moms trying to figure out what to do with this, or whether it be in a fintech app, people are talking online about different trades that they can make. I think other verticals are starting to see that there's an importance to working with your community, to building from within your community. And I think it's kind of a shift. And I don't know why I thought about this the other day, but it's almost like the anti-COVID in a way, where, hey, now we're all coming back together and we're trying to make these community events, whether they be virtual or in person. But I think community is on the rise and all over the place. And I think people want to be working together. They want to find like minds so they can share ideas, they can grow. And I think people are starting to see the value in things like that. So I wanted to do my fireball round, but I wanted to change it up to make it a little bit more community clubhouse focused. So, do you remember your first community clubhouse, and was there a moment that you remember the most about it? Kieran, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, GDC last year was when all this took off, and I think what was exciting about that for me was a lot of the questions that were coming about from the community, and everyone was there, was all around, hey, how do we do this? How do we make this work? How do we incorporate this into the games that we're thinking of building today, the games we want to build, and how can we actually make that more valuable for our user community, but how can we be creative about it? And so actually some of the things we've introduced in some games since have come about directly from conversations we had. And I'll give you a specific example, which was, hey, you know how in some markets, some states, some countries, chat needs to be off, but what could we replace chat with? And so we've since seen creatively developers that have taken some of our technology say, hey, what are the ideas that we could use to replace chat with, to make it more fun for kids? And so some of those are now starting to come to market. And so you can read about some of those things. But that directly came from conversations that we were having at a Community Clubhouse. So it definitely holds a sweet place in my heart.
That's awesome just to hear an actual thing came out of that conversation that happened at Community Clubhouse. That's so awesome. And thank you for sharing that. Karen.
Yeah, my first Community Clubhouse was Stephen and I's talk about Magic Potion Games, the next Club Penguin for the new generation. So that was incredibly fun. It was such a fun chat. And we had a bunch of old Club Penguin employees fly in that we didn't even know were coming. Lane Merrifield, the creator of Club Penguin, flew in for the chat. So that was pretty funny, talking all about just, yeah, a lot of similar things, how we're kind of approaching Imagine Island and how it's kind of, manifesting that magic of Club Penguin in a new way. And it was funny at the end, all these, young adults were standing up to ask questions, and they all started with like these really heartfelt thank yous about Club Penguin and how impactful it was in their life, which was just another reminder of how deep that really did go and how widespread that effect was from the Club Penguin days. But it was so funny hearing someone say, "Oh, I just want to thank you so much, for Club Penguin. It really changed my life." And they didn't know that Lane Merrifield was sitting right beside them. And I'm like, I don't feel right saying you're welcome, because the actual creator is right beside you. And of course, Stephen and I were one of hundreds of people that made the magic of Club Penguin what it was. So, but it was really sweet and just a good reminder that those are really, really long tail effects that like a good wholesome product can have on a generation of kids. And here they all are now wanting to create games themselves. So it's really cool.
It's awesome that you're building a kid friendly game, right? Or a kid based game, because it will have that same impact in 10 or so years, right? It's so cool to be able to go to these conferences, and when you have younger people in gaming, like these are the games that they grew up with, and they get to meet their heroes, for lack of better words, or maybe just not even know that their hero's sitting right next to you or behind
Yeah.
you, right? Like it's so cool to be able to hear that, and I love that you can share that with these other gamers, right? Because again, this was probably their first introduction to gaming for a lot of them.
Yeah, and especially as a young parent, a parent of young kids, like if we do get to provide that next wholesome, impactful, meaningful thing to like the next generation of kids that include our own kids, that's like legacy level stuff right there. Like that just makes my heart skip a beat. If we can do that, what an incredible thing to leave behind for our kids and their whole generation of kids. That's the goal. That's like the North Star here.
So, Kieran, last year when we spoke, you were doing a GoldenEye speed run. So the new question is, what game are you currently playing?
I've actually been playing Crash 4 with my 9-year-old. So they have a pass and play function built into that title, and so you trade every time every time Crash dies or falls off something. And so we've been working our way through that. And when we started, I would get handed the controller because he would say, "Dad, this part is too difficult. You need to do it." Now it's the opposite. So I will hand it back to him, and he's the one that's doing the hard bits.
I
That is
think
awesome. Is that Crash Bandicoot?
Yeah,
One of my
yeah,
all-time faves. Yeah.
I
so
think
good.
Crash is one of those first games that makes you feel old, because when you go back to it, you have to be so twitchy in your fingers that, like, I think you have to be under a certain age to be able to do certain parts of it.
and brutal, right? This was back in the days where you didn't just have infinite lives and you'd bounce back immediately. So you're back at the beginning of the level if you don't get through that challenge.
Yeah.
The first or second time.
Karen, what game are you playing?
My husband and I are actually replaying the Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. I don't know if you guys ever played that. We played it together when we kind of first met, and it's hard. Like, it is so challenging. So it's a good, test of relationship and, teamwork for sure, and staying on the same team with each other. So yeah, when we have enough energy after we put both kids down to bed, we'll jump on the couch and have a good laugh trying to struggle our way through that one right now. It's fun.
Perfect. Last question is, and we have someone from Community Clubhouse listening right now, is what would be a dream panel, whether it be a topic or someone on there that you would love to see at Community Clubhouse one day?
I think I think it would be cool to have some kids be part of a panel and talk about
Oh,
what they want and the games they're playing, what they're enjoying, how they're interacting with their friends, what their friends are talking about at school, what they're buzzing out on. I think that'd be a fun twist.
that is such a good idea. I want his answer.
There
Same.
we go.
I vote for that one. That's
Okay.
such a good idea. You'd
You
need to have a really good moderator for that one, but that would be a blast.
you heard him, Ed, loud and clear. All right, this isn't really a part of the fireball question, but let's roll this back into our normal questions. Is Karen, you are now a advisor for Community Clubhouse, I believe.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
What's that mean?
Great question. I'm really freshly on the board. I'm so excited to be. I know that I get to like vote and give input on a lot of the Community Clubhouse, panels that are coming up to exciting events, contribute to ideas of what could be good speaking, topics and people, maybe even do a few more myself, which I would love to do. So I'm just excited to give input where I'll be helpful and learn from all the other incredible people on this board. I'm super thrilled to be on it.
Cool. Congratulations again. Excited to kind of see which panels you create to bring your kid to
Mhm.
Community Clubhouse Day.
There you go. Bring your kid, Kieran. I think my kids are a little too young still, but maybe in a few years.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Imagine Island a little more, right? You're focused on building a kid first game, right? Not a kid appropriate game, because there's a big difference there, right? What factors have to go into that for building for that right audience? Do you talk to people about the different features you want to include? Like, how do you stress test some of this?
Yeah, good question. I mean, first we design everything to try and be kid appropriate, whether it comes to, visuals, to characters, to storylines, to gameplay mechanics, to, text and how much text and how we communicate, and give feedback to the kids to, teach them what to do next. It's always interesting with kids because we're really passionate about not pandering to kids either and not talking to them like they're babies or like they don't understand, and really letting them control their own experience and learn things through exploration and learn things through asking each other, like, hey, how did you do that? Hey, where did you get that? Instead of like a million kind of hand holding pop-ups. But it's always it's a balance, especially when you have a 6-year-old and you have a 13-year-old. They kind of need different things. But in terms of talking to the kids, we started doing user groups before we even had a playable product, and we used to do these kind of Zoom calls with 5 kids, and just like Kieran's saying, we would talk to them about like, what games are you playing? What do you like about those games? What do you wish you could do in games? What frustrates you about those games? What are your favorite characters? Why are they your favorite characters? Things like that. And we did that all through the development of Imagine Island. And when we had a playable version, we would also send out builds, and the kids would get into these dev builds, and we'd watch them run around, and we'd watch where they got a little hung up. Oh, they didn't understand that. Oh, that didn't make sense to them. Okay, we'd take it back to the team. This needs to be more clear. This one looked a little hard. This one looked a little too easy. So those are always like so impactful. And sometimes the thing that you worked on so much, they're like, oh, that's cool, but what is this silly garbage can? And they like zoned in on this garbage can and thought this, like, one of the kids went through a portal that was really just like a dev room where we were experimenting with the size and spacing of things, like how far should they be apart so you can jump to them and stuff like that. And that was the coolest room they found. They were like, I found a parkour room and there's a garbage can in here. This is hilarious. And we were like, this isn't even a room. It doesn't even have like colors. Why is this so fun? But, you know, it's just interesting to see what the kids get excited about and what they're calling each other over to. Like, hey, get over here, look at this thing. Like, you learn so much from just kind of watching them, asking them questions. If you can get a word in edgewise, that was always a challenge. But yeah, and then we also did that with there's an esports academy here in North Carolina, the North Carolina Esports Academy. And I went in there one day and I was like, hey, you know, I want to chat with kids about like this new game. And their owner, Caleb, has been this amazing partner. And he'll call me up and say, hey, there's a teacher work day coming up. So I've got 30 kids between 8 and 10 coming in for the day. You want to come and show them Imagine Island and get some feedback? I'm like, yes, I will be there. So we kind of find these different ways to just get hands-on with a group of kids and just really watch like what they get excited about, you know, and what they can and can't do in terms of skill set.
I think that's awesome. I think we've talked to a number of studios that, you know, people build the game thinking that this is how people are going to play the game. And then they find a parkour room and then it's not part of the game, but maybe we got to build a room like this now, right? You're looking at
Totally.
this feedback that maybe they're not even saying it, right? You're just seeing where they're all going and say, hey, we got to do something like this. And I love that you're talking with the kids and getting their understanding. You already went into one early access, and I know the second early access comes out soon. What type of feedback did you receive from that first one? And are there going to be any changes from what you've heard?
Yeah, I mean, we just wanted to kind of like get out early. So we had the game built and launched within 7 months, which is pretty insane for like the quality and a functioning MMO. And then 3 weeks later, we launched our first Halloween party. So we really wanted to see like, okay, can we be a live product? Can we like update and get new content in every week, redo the whole world in a Halloween state 3 weeks later? So it was really impressive. And we just wanted to make sure like, okay, is this world fun? Is this overall concept fun? And the kids that were in there, you know, the answer was yes. Like they're loving it. It's fun. People are coming back. They want to have a great time. And now the next phase is okay, we need to meet scale. Now we just need like as many eyeballs as we possibly can. So that's kind of our next step here. And that's what's going to take us to web. So we're super excited to go out on web. We think like, I mean, we're seeing web just make this massive comeback. It's funny again with the Club Penguin, whole story behind us. Club Penguin really found its audience on mini clip. So we were kind of like, what's our mini clip? Like, what's today's mini clip? So if you look into it, there's these awesome web online gaming portals that are just like really low barrier to entry, quick games that kids can just jump in and play, right? And, if on something like Steam or Epic Games, where we went out for our first early access, like there's a lot of hoops you need to jump through. You need to download. Some kids can't download. They don't even have download abilities on their computer. So we're like, cool, let's get in front of these kids that are just like jumping in, low barrier, and there's millions of them. So yeah, next step for us is just like getting onto web, getting a bazillion kids in there playing, and the game is so much more fun when it's like busy and active. So this is going to be a really awesome chapter for Imagine Island.
When you make the change from, well, maybe it's not a change, maybe it's supporting web along with Steam, right? There's been this huge resurgence in my mind of WebGL, WebGPU, the capabilities it has and how it's going to continue to grow, as well as kind of with Steam Discovery being finding a needle in a haystack, right? So
Yes,
I love the emergence of these other platforms. I go back to the addictinggames.com from my
exactly.
childhood, right? And doing stuff like that. Are there different hoops, different barriers? Like, what are the concerns when it's time to move to web versus Steam?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is just like the size of the game, right? So that's the biggest constraint. It needs to be small. It needs to be like under, 100 megs or whatever, and they need to jump in it really quick. They want to make sure it loads within a few seconds. But yeah, with the latest Unity and WebGL, like our team, the version of this game built to run on web is like it came together so quickly and it feels so good. The movements are all kind of fresh and fun. They're bouncy, and we're just having an absolute blast in this kind of latest build. So it's really let us move really quite quickly. And so far, our team has done an incredible job keeping the game wildly small for how big it is and the fact that it's this big, living kind of MMO. So that's the biggest challenge, but the latest tech is just making it easier.
So, Karen's game, Imagine Island's about to have a bazillion kids in there playing around, jumping around, and the global regulatory landscape's been changing, I feel like, drastically over the past few weeks and months, with different changes coming out on just who can access what. How does I'm just focusing on KID, right? How do you stay on top of the global compliance changes that are happening? Because there's so many different rules out there that are always changing. How does one stay on top of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And when we started the company, I had one vision for how we would do that. And it's fair to say that the pace of regulatory change has just it's extraordinary now. And I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, Indonesia, like one of the most populous countries in the world, huge gaming market, and in fact, massive web gaming community, introduced a new regulation that requires any online platform to age band between 2 to 3 years, all the way up to 18. So you need to have different experiences and different configurations all the way up. That's crazy. And so the idea of building that, and that's 200 million plus people, right? So it's a big market, and so it's something worth building for. That's one tiny example. So we're very, very close with a lot of the regulatory agencies. In fact, we get involved in writing a lot of the regulation, a lot of the guidance as well, which is sort of a little bit of the cheat code to it, because if you're involved a year before the regulation comes out, by the time it comes out, you know what to expect. We've already updated our system. We know, how the config's going to impact the user community. We usually drive some of the direction of travel of a lot of that. And then there's a multitude of other ways that we do that, through certifications and safe harbors and partnerships. And obviously, at the end of the day, our team are a bit unique in the sense that we're 50% lawyers and 50% engineers. So we're 100% paranoid.
A lot of lawyers in a room. How do you work with these studios to make sure that they're setting things up properly? And I know it's kind of a weird question, but in my mind, I imagine most indie studios don't know the first thing about compliance or law or anything like that. So is it just set up the platform does it all for you? How do you help educate your customers?
That's really it. And so we take as much of the pain out and have developed a platform where you go in and you tick boxes. It really is as simple as that. These are the features within my title. And then we typically have conversations with them about maybe how creatively they'd like to react to some of those things. But also just letting us know what markets they're moving into, because often we can give them a bit of a heat map around, oh, hey, we're expanding into these 12 markets. And we can say, sweet, you're good. There's nothing that you need to worry about in those particular markets as you expand. Or we can just provide learnings based on our experience as other titles have expanded into new territories. And now we're getting devs coming to us asking, okay, what else? What else can we help with outside of compliance? And so part of that is creatively supporting a lot of the vision. Part of it's discovery, which you mentioned, and how can we actually contribute to getting cool games. And Imagine Island is awesome, and we've been part of the playtest, so I've seen it evolve over all that time. It's fun for me as much as my 9-year-old. So it's so much fun to play. Like, how do we help amazing devs like Karin get this in front of that audience? And so I think our unique position is because we're the infrastructure behind quite a lot of titles and a lot of big IPs. How do we take that and seize that momentum and contribute to the developer community?
I think the stuff you said about Indonesia is kind of mind-boggling. I think there's so many weird rules out there that we probably don't know. You probably do. Like, are there any other you can share with us? Because I don't think people realize how big the Southeast Asia Sea area is when it comes to gaming. And Indonesia is probably one of the number ones in that area, right? Are there any other weird laws that people wouldn't even believe are real that you're aware of?
Oh, so we actually have a tracker internally. So as we do a lot of the regulatory review, if anything is super quirky, we actually have a Slack channel where it's, oh my gosh, sometimes it's archaic, right? This is something that hasn't been changed in 100 years, and in the age of the internet is weird. But some of the examples that can trip developers up are like, for example, in Korea, if you're an indie dev and you're making less than, I think it's 18 million Korean won, then, and I probably got that number wrong, but if you're below a certain threshold, then effectively a lot of the rules around monetization in your game, like cosmetic loot boxes, subscriptions, time limits, spend limits, all those things don't apply to you. And as soon as you cross that revenue threshold, everything lights up like a Christmas tree. And the Korean regulatory agency, of which there are four, one of them actually engages a service provider to go and scour the internet every single year. And they usually get a list of somewhere between 5 to 10,000 games and apps. And they just audit everything in an automated way. And so you can get picked up in one of those scrapes. They look at the revenue. They're like, oh, you've crossed the revenue threshold. And the next thing you know, you're an indie dev and you've got this sort of letter from the Korean government, and you sort of freaking out about what that means. So it's those sorts of things that can trip folks up, and that's a lot of what we take the sting out of.
That's crazy. I feel like it's fun to pay attention to that stuff until you have to comply with it. Then you're just like, oh crap, I got to do all this stuff now. So you just sign up with KID. They do it all for you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, you do. It's the type of thing where if you're thinking about retrofitting a game for time spend limits, the way that maybe randomized rewards work, your subscriptions work, like auto renewing subscriptions, big no in a number of countries. If you're dealing with kids, those sorts of things, you don't want to think about that. You're so worried about, is my game working? Are players loving the game? How do I make it more fun? That's the stuff you just, as a game dev, we hear all the time. Oh gosh, this is a pain point I don't want to have to think about.
Yeah, I remember at GDC this year at the mini golf place, you guys had the video running. I forgot if it wasn't YouTube, but it was some video platform, and it was age-based viewing. So you had it like logged in as someone over 18, and they saw all the videos, and you had someone else that was under 18, and like the videos, like it just scaled seamlessly, it updated seamlessly. I was like, this is just like, it's seamless, it's beautiful, like this is what's needed. No one knows what's missing, no one cares what's missing. It's just, it works how it should work for who it's working for. And I think, I don't know, some of these technologies that are coming out are just so cool to help protect younger audiences, older audiences from seeing things, right? I mean, it just makes so much sense. And I think it's so cool to be able to see all this stuff working in progress. So congrats to all that. Some studios aren't prepared to make an investment of that size, especially indie studios, right? So what are some suggestions you'd make on starting on a budget and then being able to scale up to afford a tool like KID?
Yeah, so I'd say three things. One is, when we started the company, it was very much focused on compliance and how do we solve all of these issues so it's really, really easy to go to market and not have to worry about it. Here are three things we've discovered, and where I see a lot of the publishers we work with today, particularly if they have an existing title and they're looking to add this in, where they see value. One is, we expand the audience overnight. So the second you integrate our platform in, you may have been either ignoring, choosing to ignore, or because you don't want to acknowledge the sub 13 or the sub 16 market, that immediately unlocks overnight. The second one is that we bring the parents into that community. So the parents are aware of what's happening. They're digitally engaged in what their kids are up to online. And so that means that you do two things. One is parents are more willing to spend because they can see that their kids are having fun. They're aware of where their kids are, what they're doing, who they're talking to. They're more willing to spend. And the flip side of that is that it reduces chargebacks. And so oh my gosh, my kids have run up all these credit card charges. What are they doing? All this sort of thing, which is a really reactive thing. And it's really, really hard to, once that train has left the station, it's really, really difficult to pull that back. And so that's a big part of it. The third one is, and we discovered this by complete accident, and it was developers who were asking us about it, is, our infrastructure is integrated into a suite of amazing titles today, a lot of really, really big titles with tens of millions of users. And in fact, we now have social platforms that have integrated a lot of our technology. We are the central hub to all of those spokes. And so we had our biggest day yesterday. I think our web traffic yesterday grew like 9,000%.
Wow.
It's extraordinary how many parents are coming and visiting our site, and their kids who are coming to visit and understand, oh, what's this new thing that's now in the game that I'm playing? Because it's super popular. The kids are talking about it at school. There's a lot of like YouTube videos about this sort of thing now. And so we're actually, I don't want to say we solved discovery, but we are tinkering in the fact that we do exist in this space where we can support developers with discovery. And so I think those three things where developers are seeing value in KID today, compliance is almost just the side effect of all of that.
I think the whole monetary side of it, right? Preventing chargebacks, authorizing charges, right? I mean, I didn't even think about that, but it makes perfect sense, right? If I could see what my child's doing in game, I'm happy to spend a few bucks if I know they're not screwing around in that game, right? It's money easily spent knowing they're keeping them entertained. So I think that's an awesome point that didn't even cross my mind. Karin, for Imagine Island, what are the next few steps? Like, how do people start learning more about Imagine Island? How can they play? How can they follow?
Yeah, so we're targeting to go out on Poke Games in July. So very excited. We kind of do an early test with them, then we do a soft launch, then we'll go wide. So hopefully we'll be wide by August, and then after that, like we're kind of heads down, focused on web right now, and making sure that we kind of get out there, get that audience in, see how they're playing, do any kind of tuning we need to, and just really kind of dive in head first. And then we're planning to go out on Crazy Games as well, another amazing web platform. And then we'll look into mobile and really just go like where the kids are asking us to go, right? Where it's like where they are and where their friends are and where they want to play Imagine Island is where we will go next.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds super cool. And again, as a parent to a 7-year-old, that they play everywhere. So get ready to support everything.
Exactly.
Kieran, Karin, thank you so much. This has been such a fun episode to be able to hear about a kid's first game, how kids are protected, how they can play, how they can do it on Steam, how you're building onto the web, how different regulatory compliance rules that are out there, monetary stuff. There's so much great stuff that came out of this episode. Before we do end for the day, can you let us know where we can find you or your respective studios? Karin.
Yeah, absolutely. You can email me with any follow-up questions, Karin, Karin, at magicpotiongames.com. Or yeah, we're on LinkedIn. You can hit up our website. There's contact forms anywhere. We would love to hear from you.
And they have a Steam page. Go check out their Steam page. We'll have a link to it. Kieran.
Yeah, I mean, Google K-ID, and you'll track us down. We're super proud of our website. We actually took a bit of creative energy that our publishers were really inspiring us with, and we played that back in our website. So we're super, super proud of our website. Go check it out. You can reach out to us through there. And then, we have this extraordinary family community that we're building. And so you can go and see everything that we're integrated into there. And there's hundreds more titles coming.
Super cool. We will have links to KID's website. We'll have links to Magic Potions stuff. We'll have links to everything. And a big thanks again to Community Clubhouse for sponsoring this episode. They are a wealth of knowledge, whether it be at GDC or at Gamescom, whether you be a community manager, trust and safety, just monetization in game. They have best practices for all that. So a big thanks to Community Clubhouse again. And again, Karin, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having us. This was
Thanks
awesome.
so much.
Cheers.
Bye.